Gotcha. Okay, so thinking back then, when you get this query in 2014, that's neck and shoulders above all the other queries that you're receiving prior to that, but not quite there. What is it that grabs your attention? I'm asking you about something that happened all the way back, what, 6 years ago now, almost 7? So do you remember what happened? And also, because this is April 17th, wink, wink, are you open or closed to queries right now?
I am still closed, unfortunately. I think as long as the pandemic is effectively ongoing, it's been hard for me because I'm still sort of dealing with a lot of childcare stuff that I didn't have to deal with before. My kids are in school right now, actually, very nice, but it's still tough for other things. So yes, I'm still closed. But to speak to the question you asked previously about Kyle's query and what made it stand out, honestly, it was just an exciting project. It was well written, in my opinion. I could sense that he was talented. Obviously, I also was very interested in the subject matter as well. I'd definitely never received a query from a trans author about a trans character, and that was very cool. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I would love to read this. I would love to be part of this. And it was exciting to me that it was actually also good. So yeah, I think that was probably what stood out for me.
So if I'm Kyle, I'm pulling out all my hair and oh my God, we're that close. You're saying such wonderful things. What is it that obviously we know this has a happy ending because here you both are together. But what is it that kept? Do you remember what it is that kept you from moving forward?
Yes,
it has all that going for it.
I think, and I'm not sure, and you can interrupt me if I'm wrong, I think it was just the fact that the plot wasn't propulsive enough, or it just didn't feel. I think I liked the general concept and the general writing, but I didn't feel like the plot was there yet, I think.
So I've gone back, I went back and reread that project, I mean, a while ago, honestly, but I've also now since read projects that feel similar to it. And I think that one weakness that I had that I didn't know that I had, that actually Saba picked up on, which she then asked me to like revise for, was that it was a very like clippy dialogue based book where like it just moved from like scene to scene to scene to scene. And the only thing moving the plot forward were the characters talking to each other. And there was no space to like relax into the world and to like breathe into the main character's interiority. It was just like thing. And yeah, and I think that was sort of what turned off most agents initially. It just felt like you were sort of like bombarded with information about what's happening instead of allowed to like read a story.
When did you figure, how many agents did you query and get no's from before you figured out that was the issue?
I mean, I only figured out that was the issue a few years ago. I think I read a published novel that I will not name that in my opinion has the same problem. And I was like, oh, I did that and I don't like reading this. Okay.
Banneker Bones and the Giant Robot Beans, I appreciate your kindness.
Yes, I'm subtweeting you right now. No, I don't remember how many agents I queried, but the answer is enough to make me feel like I should give up. Which for some people might be 3 and for others might be 500. It's probably somewhere in between 3 and 500. I'm not sure where though.
So you feel like you should give up, why don't you?
I don't know. I mean, well, I also just like had that weird picture book idea. I'd written the text for what became my debut way back in like 2007, I think. I just had this like, so it's a picture book that uses the collective noun of animals and like one or two sentence of very, very short story. So like the first page is the nuisance of cats blamed it on the dog. And all of those little sentences just sort of came to me. I don't even remember one because it was, 14 years ago at this point. And I think in my head, I was like, well, I'm going to try this. And if this doesn't work, then I will give up for real. So Saba made me think that I could do it. And then I was like, well, but I'll give myself one more chance. And then I sold Ravens and I was like, okay, I can do this. But that was a dumb idea that I had when I was 22. That doesn't make me a real writer. Let me see if I can sell something else. Then I'll feel like a real writer. And you know, my agent at the time and we weren't a good fit really in a lot of ways, mostly, you know, just like aesthetically. But I managed to sell my second book with her called Explosion at the Poem Factory. But that one I based on the bad poem that a friend of mine wrote. So it wasn't my original idea. So I was like, well, this one also doesn't count. Like, I can't think of myself as a real writer yet because I stole this idea from Amitai. I didn't steal it. I have his full permission and whatever.
And he gets half the royalties, right?
I gave him a third of my advance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I owed it. I was like, I owe this to you. Well, and yeah, so I didn't feel like a real writer yet. And then I told myself that once I sold Aidan, then I would feel like a real writer. And that didn't happen either, but it's been slowly growing on me. I think I didn't give up again. Mostly
you feel like a real writer right now.
I do now.
Okay,
It's taken a long time. It's like, it's happening in like drips and drabs.
This moment, now that you're on this podcast, my God, it must be real.
Yeah. Not when I won the Stonewall, just yeah.
That was nothing.
That old thing.
This moment, this is it.
That old thing. Yeah, and I cannot discount how much spite played into my inability to give up. I think that if Aidan hadn't been a picture book about a trans boy that had a story that I had never seen before, that I didn't think a cis person could come up with, I think I would have given up. But I just was like so mad at everything and everyone. And I was like, if I give up, it means that they've won. So I cannot give up.
The collective they. We must fight them. So Saba, what is it about these emails that you're continuing to receive over time from Kyle that are charming and not creepy? And how can listeners hope to duplicate that?
Well, they were not frequent. They were, he would always email me when there was a reason to share something meaningful and important about his writing career, which is why they always felt like a natural way of keeping in touch versus sometimes I get emails from authors just saying hi, and that can get a little awkward because, you know, I get a lot of email. And if it's not a little bit more sort of substantive or something where it's an update or maybe even some advice or something, then it can feel like it's pretty obvious what you're trying to do is just keep me on your radar versus keep yourself on my radar rather, versus actually just build a relationship over time based on the fact that we are now connected and I hopefully am a part of your journey in, you know, your journey in becoming a writer, and which is what he made me feel like I was, and I felt it and I believed it. He even once wrote a blog post where he talked about me, and I was so excited. I very much like, he asked me for permission, and I was like, oh yes, you can have my permission. Inside, I'm like, someone's writing a blog about me. It was very exciting. And yeah, that was also, I remember sharing that with my husband, being like, look, there's a writer out there who likes me enough to like talk about me. I don't even represent him. Like I mean, you know, we're talking about failure and giving up. I thought of giving up so many times in my first 2 years of agenting because it's so hard. I mean, like it took me 2.5 years to sell my first book. And that's pretty standard. But when you're in it, it's really hard because you're just wondering, I mean, you're not getting paid through it. It's just, it's really hard. And that was the phase I was in when Kyle was sort of, you know, being very nice and kind about acknowledging my role in his author journey. And I was like, well, see, I'm making a difference. You know, it really helped me actually stay in my job in some ways, if you think about it. Like, I'll never forget that blog post, and just all of those kind of moments just made me feel like, yeah, I can keep doing this too. Maybe I should just, maybe there are some good authors who are actually progressing in their careers because of this something tiny I said to them, and maybe I'm making a difference. And that's kind of the nature of the notes that he would send me. Again, I don't think he sent me more than that. To be very clear, he sent me like maybe 2 emails, like 3 tops since we corresponded about that YA book. Maybe 2
probably like 3 or 4.
Yeah, not more
like
than that. Over the course of many years. So like definitely it wasn't just a hi, checking in, what's up, heard the weather was bad. Like, no, it was, I'm super excited. I feel I want to share with you that I sold my first book is a really great time to reach out to someone who's been, you know, a cheerleader in the past or someone who's helped you in any way. So that was kind of, and it was always short and respectful, and yeah, just want to let you know, and I'm so grateful for everything you've done, and thank you. And that's it. And I was like, oh, I loved it. I loved hearing from him. It made me excited. It made me feel energized about my own job, and it made me feel many, I think at least 2 of those emails, I remember receiving them thinking, okay, I think I can keep doing this job, because they were very like, there were moments where I was like, why do I do this? You know, I don't get good material. I'm not selling the books I'm trying to sell. Authors are sending me nasty rejection emails to my rejections. Like, it's just really, really hard when you're a baby agent, and you get a lot of, it's negative overall. And so that's why those emails were very positive, and I still appreciate them very much.
I love this. You're encouraging each other, slowly moving toward this wonderful moment where you're going to go on and you're going to sell a lot of books together. But two follow-ups on that. One, what is an appropriate event to follow up with an agent about? I mean, I'm assuming I'm not like, hey, I hit my word count goal today. Or I'm not going to send you an email every week from here on out that, hey, I had this person on my podcast. How excited are you? That's going to get old fast. So I'm assuming those are out. What is a good thing to follow up?
So I think because we had corresponded a lot on that initial project, and I gave him notes on a partial, I think it's fair to say that every agent I know, when they've invested enough to give an author notes, especially on more than just the query, on a partial at least, if not the full, I think most agents who do that are interested actually quite seriously in the prospect of working with that author. And so if they were to follow up at any point, just saying, thank you, this was so useful to me, I ended up finding an agent, or thank you, I decided to self-publish and this is what I did, or hi, you know, I ended up shelving that book, but I have a new book. We always look forward to hearing back from authors that we've invested that kind of time and energy into, because it's not very common. So I would say those are appropriate times. Just have, that's an appropriate agent to follow up with, not just someone who just rejected your query. Definitely someone you've already kind of been in touch with at least a little bit about a book in a more meaningful way. And then if you think, you know, you agree with their feedback, you like their vibe, you want to keep in touch, then absolutely just dropping them a line about your journey. I mean, at least me, I can only speak for myself, obviously. I would be perfectly happy to receive that kind of correspondence from an author that I've been interested enough to want to read at least a partial or a full of their work.
Also, Saba is the only agent that I corresponded with like that. Like, there are some agents now that I'm friendly with because we see each other around. We might be Facebook friends by this point, you know, because I've been in this larger community for long enough. I've just gotten to know people otherwise. But for, you know, all the other agents who just sent me a form rejection, which is perfectly acceptable. Like, I hold nobody any ill will for that. But I have never really followed up with any of them in that regard, because I just didn't think that it mattered to them. Like, I didn't think that they would remember me, which is perfectly acceptable. And also, like, I didn't have anything it would come off as bragging to them. Like, I was updating Saba because I did think that she would be happy to hear it. But if I was to like email every agent that rejected me and was like, hey, just to let you know, I'm great, like that.
I definitely get those emails too. And those are not so great. No.
Yeah,
you missed out.
I definitely get those emails where it's like, just want you to know, you rejected me, but now I got an agent. You were wrong. I was right. I get those.
Like, yeah. Do I feel that in the dark recesses of my heart? Certainly. But do I act on all of my unpleasant impulses? I try not to.
I can't imagine that feeling as good as you would think it does before you send the email. I think afterward there'd just be an empty feeling. I probably shouldn't have sent that. And then you're going to see them at that agent at a conference later, and it's going to be a really awkward moment. But my other question, Saba, was that 2.5 years, while you're not receiving anything good, you're not selling books, and you're not getting paid. Are you? Have you got a day job going, or how are you surviving during that time? And what keeps you going other than Kyle's emails?
Not much. No, I'm just kidding. I still do this. A lot of agents make an income via conferences, teaching workshops, writing critiques. So I did a lot of those in the beginning, just to like get that extra income. I wasn't working another job I was basically dependent on my husband and just figuring out how I could get this going on my own. I was very privileged to have that opportunity to not need that second job, but I know many, many agents don't have that privilege, and they often work more than 2 jobs in the very beginning. But yeah, I just hustled on the critique circuit a lot. It was a lot.